June 1st, 1926, Los Angeles County Hospital. A young woman lies in the delivery room alone. Her name is Gladys Pearl Baker. She is 24 years old, unmarried. The baby's father, Gladys knows, but she will never tell. The baby girl enters the world with a cry that echoes through empty corridors. Her name, Norma Jeane Mortensen. But there's something missing from this birth certificate. The father's name remains blank. This tiny girl, with her blue eyes and soft brown curls, has just been born into a world that doesn't quite want her. And this moment, this very first breath, begins a story that will end 36 years later with the most mysterious death in Hollywood history. Gladys Baker works at Consolidated Film Industries in Hollywood. She cuts and splices film negatives. Hour after hour, she watches flickering images of movie stars. Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, Rudolph Valentino. These faces become her obsession. She pins their photographs on every wall of her small apartment. She stares at them. She talks to them. Sometimes she whispers to baby Norma Jeane, pointing at Clark Gable's photograph. She says those words that will haunt the child forever. She tells her that handsome man is her father. It's not true, but little Norma Jeane doesn't know that yet. Gladys cannot keep her daughter. Money is scarce. Her mental state is fragile. Something dark grows inside her mind, something that will eventually consume her completely. She makes a decision that will shape Norma Jeane's entire existence. She places her baby with a foster family. The Bolenders. Albert and Ida Bolender run a strict household in Hawthorne, California. They are religious, very religious. Young Norma Jeane learns to pray before she learns to speak clearly. She learns that the world is full of sin. She learns that her mother doesn't want her, but she doesn't understand why. Every Saturday, if Gladys remembers, she visits. She appears at the door like a ghost. Norma Jeane runs to her, arms outstretched, hoping this time her mother will take her home. But Gladys stays for an hour, maybe two. Then she leaves, always leaves. The little girl stands at the window, watching her mother walk away down the street, getting smaller and smaller until she disappears. Norma Jeane is 5 years old when she starts to understand a terrible truth. She is not wanted. Not really. Not enough. But something strange happens during these early years. Norma Jeane discovers something powerful. When she smiles a certain way, adults soften. When she laughs and plays innocent, they pay attention. She is learning, even at this young age, to perform, to become what others want to see. It's a survival skill. She doesn't know it yet, but she's already creating the mask that will one day become Marilyn Monroe. Norma Jeane is 7 years old. Her mother Gladys has saved enough money to rent a small house. Finally, they can live together. Norma Jeane feels something she's never felt before. Hope, real hope. They move into a white bungalow. Gladys brings all her movie star photographs. Clark Gable smiles down from every wall. Norma Jeane thinks maybe, just maybe, everything will be okay now. For 4 months, she has a mother. For 4 months, she experiences something close to normal. But Gladys is changing. Her behavior becomes erratic. She stays up all night cutting film, talking to the photographs on the walls. She says strange things. She believes people are watching her, following her, plotting against her. One morning, Norma Jeane wakes up to screaming. Her mother is in the living room, tearing photographs off the walls. Gladys is shouting that they are watching her, that they are coming through the pictures. The 7-year-old girl stands in her nightgown, terrified, not understanding what's happening. Neighbors call the police. An ambulance arrives. Men in white coats enter the house. Gladys is still screaming about the watchers, about the conspiracy, about the faces in the photographs. They take her away. Norma Jeane stands on the porch, watching her mother being loaded into the ambulance. Gladys is thrashing, fighting. The doors close. The ambulance drives away. The little girl asks the question that will define her childhood. When is Mommy coming home? Nobody answers, because nobody knows. Paranoid schizophrenia. That's what the doctors call it. Gladys is committed to the Metropolitan State Hospital. She will spend most of the rest of her life in and out of psychiatric institutions. Norma Jeane is 7 years old, and she is alone. Completely alone. September 13th, 1935. Norma Jeane stands in front of a large building. The Los Angeles Orphans Home Society. She is 9 years old now. She has spent the last 2 years being passed between foster families like an unwanted package. Nobody wants to keep her permanently. She's not an easy child anymore. She's developed a stutter. She's withdrawn. She has nightmares. The orphanage is a massive brick building that houses hundreds of children. Children without parents. Children nobody wants. Norma Jeane walks through those doors carrying a small suitcase. Everything she owns fits inside it. She is assigned a bed in a dormitory with dozens of other girls. The woman in charge tells her the rules. Wake at 6 a.m., chores, school, more chores, dinner, bed, every day the same. No individuality, no special treatment. Just another unwanted child in a building full of unwanted children. But Norma Jeane learns something crucial in that orphanage. She learns that beauty is currency. The pretty girls get adopted faster. They get treats from visitors. They get attention. She starts to understand her face, her smile, her developing body. These are tools, weapons, ways to survive. She stands at the fence of the orphanage playground, watching families walk by on the street. Sometimes they stop. Sometimes they look at the children. Sometimes they choose one and take them home. Norma Jeane presses her face against that chain-link fence, hoping someone will choose her. They never do. 11 months she spends in that orphanage. 11 months that carve deep scars into her soul. She will later say that she felt like a prisoner, like someone serving time for a crime she didn't commit. The crime of being born. Over the next 7 years, Norma Jeane lives in 11 different foster homes. 11 different families. 11 different rejections. Some families are kind but poor. They need the foster care money more than they want another child. Some families are strict and cold. They provide food and shelter but nothing else. No love, no warmth, just obligation. Norma Jeane learns to pack quickly. She learns not to unpack completely because she knows she won't stay long. She learns not to call anyone mom or dad because they're not. They're just temporary people in her temporary life. She learns not to get attached to anything because everything gets taken away eventually. But something happens in one of these foster homes, something terrible, something that Norma Jeane will carry with her forever. She is 9 years old, maybe 10. The details remain murky, protected by trauma and time. A man enters her room at night, one of the foster family members. The house is dark. Everyone else is asleep. He tells her to be quiet. He tells her this is their secret. He touches her in ways that make her feel sick and confused and terrified. She doesn't understand what's happening. She only knows it's wrong. It feels wrong. Everything about it feels wrong. The next day, she tries to tell someone. She tries to explain what happened, but the adults don't believe her. They say she's making up stories for attention. They say she's a troubled girl from a troubled family. They say she's lying. The man who hurt her stays in that house. Norma Jeane is moved to a different foster home, not because anyone believed her, but because she became a problem. Years later, Marilyn Monroe will tell her psychoanalyst about this trauma. She will say that it taught her a devastating lesson. Men cannot be trusted, but women cannot protect her. And her own words, her own truth means nothing to anyone. Yet somehow, impossibly, she will spend her entire life seeking approval from men, seeking protection from men, seeking love from men. She will search for her absent father in every male face, and she will never, ever find him. By the time Norma Jeane reaches her teenage years, something has changed. The awkward, stuttering girl has transformed. Her body develops curves. Her face loses its childish roundness. Boys at Emerson Junior High School start to notice her. They stare at her in the hallways. They whisper when she walks by. She discovers power in this attention. For the first time in her life, she has something valuable, something people want. Her developing sexuality becomes both her greatest asset and her deepest curse. But there's a problem. She's 16 years old and she's about to age out of the foster care system. Her current foster family, the Goddards, are planning to move to the East Coast. They cannot take her with them. The choices are stark: return to the orphanage or find another solution. Grace Goddard, her foster mother, has an idea. There's a boy, a nice boy from the neighborhood, James Dougherty. He's 21 years old. He has a job, he's stable, he's safe. Grace suggests something that will change Norma Jeane's life forever. Marriage. Escape through marriage. June 19, 1942. Norma Jeane Mortensen, 16 years old, marries James Dougherty in a simple ceremony. She wears a borrowed wedding dress. She is not in love. James is not in love. This is a transaction, an arrangement. A way to keep a teenage girl out of the orphanage. She takes his name. She becomes Norma Jeane Dougherty. She thinks maybe marriage will save her. Maybe this is finally the home she's been searching for. Maybe James will be the family she never had. But deep down in that wounded place inside her, she knows the truth. She is still that unwanted child, still that little girl pressing her face against the orphanage fence, still searching for someone to choose her, to keep her, to love her. And this marriage, this desperate escape, it's just another temporary home, another place she doesn't truly belong. James works long hours. Norma Jeane cooks and cleans and tries to be a good wife. She is still 16 years old. She should be in high school. She should be going to dances and worrying about homework. Instead, she's married, playing house, pretending to be an adult. The stutter that plagued her childhood returns sometimes, especially when she's nervous, especially when James asks her about her feelings. She doesn't know how to answer questions about feelings. Nobody ever taught her. Nobody ever cared enough to ask. Then the world changes. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. America enters World War II. James enlists in the Merchant Marine. Suddenly, Norma Jeane is alone again. He ships out, and she's left in a small apartment with her thoughts and her memories and her fears. She gets a job at the Radio Plane Company in Van Nuys. It's a factory that makes target drones for training anti-aircraft gunners. She works on the assembly line, inspecting parachutes, spraying fuselage parts with fire retardant. It's repetitive, mindless work, but it's something. It's purpose. Other women work alongside her. Thousands of women all supporting the war effort while their men fight overseas. Norma Jeane is good at the work. She's reliable. She shows up on time. She does what she's told. But something inside her is restless. That performance skill she learned as a child, that ability to become what others want to see, it's growing stronger. She catches men looking at her, even in her factory coveralls with her hair tied back. She sees something in their eyes, desire, interest, power. She's beginning to understand that her face, her body, her carefully practiced smile, these are her tickets out. Out of the factory, out of poverty, out of being Norma Jeane, the unwanted child. But she doesn't know how yet. She doesn't know that in just a few months, a photographer will walk into that factory. He will be looking for pretty girls to photograph for a morale-boosting article. He will see her, and everything will change. But that moment hasn't arrived yet. Right now, in this moment, she is still Norma Jeane Doherty, still a teenage bride with a childhood of trauma behind her and an unknown future ahead. She's still that little girl who watched her mother being taken away in an ambulance, still that 9-year-old who was hurt in the darkness and then not believed, still that child standing at the orphanage fence, hoping someone will choose her. She doesn't know that soon, very soon, she will choose herself. She will create a new person, a new identity, a new name. She will kill Norma Jeane and give birth to Marilyn Monroe. But that transformation requires one more catalyst, one more moment of discovery. And that moment is coming. The photographer is coming. The camera is coming. And Norma Jeane Mortensen Doherty, the unwanted child, the foster kid, the young bride married out of desperation, she is about to discover that the one thing she has always possessed, the one thing nobody can take away, is her image, her face, her carefully constructed performance of desirability. She is about to learn that beauty is not just currency. Beauty is power. Beauty is escape. Beauty is transformation. But beauty is also a prison. And once she enters that prison, she will never, ever escape. This is where the story truly begins. Not with Marilyn Monroe. Not with platinum blonde hair and red lipstick and that famous breathy voice. Not with movie premieres and magazine covers and men in power. No, the story begins here with a child nobody wanted, a girl nobody believed. A teenager trapped in a marriage of convenience. A young woman working in a factory, dreaming of something more but not knowing what. This is the origin. This is the wound that will never heal. This is Norma Jeane. And in a very real sense, Norma Jeane never left, even when the world knew her as Marilyn Monroe, even when she became the most famous woman on earth, even in those final hours on August 5th, 1962, when she lay dying in her bedroom, alone in the darkness. That unwanted child was still there, still pressing her face against the fence, still waiting for someone to choose her, still asking that question she asked when she was 7 years old, watching her mother being taken away. When is mommy coming home? Nobody ever answered, because the answer was never. This is Marilyn Files, Episode 1, The Unwanted Child. Next time we'll meet the photographer who changed everything. We'll watch as Norma Jeane makes a choice that will transform her into someone else entirely. We'll see the moment when brown curls become platinum blonde, when a stutter becomes a whisper, when Norma Jeane dies and Marilyn Monroe is born. But remember this. Remember where it started, because you can't understand the woman without understanding the child. And that child never got what she needed, never got chosen, never got kept, never got love the way she deserved. That wound shaped everything. That wound created Marilyn, and that wound ultimately destroyed her.